life friends. I convinced my mother to take a 23andme DNA test, and I'm excited about discussing her results in this video. Like many older people, my mother was a little unsure about taking a DNA test at first. Y'all, older black people don't trust anything. My mother has always been a trailblazer, though. She's never been afraid of stepping outside of the box and trying new things, even when that meant moving our family across the country away from our extended family to start our new lives, or going to cosmetology school and becoming the top stylist at an all-white salon, or putting everything into her marriage to make sure her children did not grow up without a father. My mother has always lived life according to her terms, but she always selflessly made decisions to ensure the success of her family. My mother is an amazing wife and mother, y'all, and I have a tremendous amount of respect and love for her. My channel focuses on 3 big areas: discovery, life, and inspiration. Our discovery segment includes our ancestry journey. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Ancestry Journey Life playlist to catch up on all our past ancestry videos. The life segment could potentially include anything that's a part of Life with Dr. Trish. My family, our home life, our trips, my career, etc. As I grow and explore in my own life, I want to inspire others to do the same. So my inspiration segment will include various ways to inspire others, including words of encouragement, life advice, and more. This is why I call the channel Life with Dr. Trish, because life is big and there's always something new to discover and enjoy. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the post notification bell to be notified whenever I post new content. I invite you to come along for the journey and become a life friend. I briefly interviewed my mother a few days ago about how she felt about her results. She was both surprised and not surprised. She was always told that her father came from mixed ancestry, so she wasn't shocked to see that confirmed in her results. However, my mother was very surprised to see her percentages of mixed ancestry. This is because my mother is a brown-skinned woman. With the advent of these DNA tests, people seem to forget what it's like to be a brown-skinned woman in America. Darker-skinned women have often been ignored or thought of as less attractive. They often weren't considered to have any mixed ancestry. It wasn't uncommon to hear jokes like, "Your ancestors worked in the field and not in the house." That is a reference to dark-skinned versus light-skinned black people in America. Historically, during slavery, lighter-skinned black people who often had mixed African and European ancestry were more likely to serve in the houses instead of picking cotton out in the fields. It was history like that which led to colorism in the African American community. Unfortunately, colorism for centuries has caused a lot of animosity within the African American community. Although anyone in America was classified as black if they were from an African descent, lighter-skinned black people, especially those who could potentially pass for another race, were sometimes viewed with a higher regard. There have been numerous negative thoughts and ideas about darker-skinned girls and women that have impacted the way society sees us. Some black families didn't want their children marrying anyone darker than them. There was the brown paper bag test, which suggested that if you were darker than a brown paper bag, then you were too dark. My mother is browner than I am, but I was also considered a brown-skinned girl, although I'm a medium brown at best. I never seemed to be light enough for society standards. I remember dating someone who suggested all my ancestors must be African because of my brown skin. He was black himself, y'all, and was just slightly lighter than I am. I've never been an unattractive girl or woman, but I was often overlooked by black men who preferred the mixed-looking girls. This is why it's so shocking to me now that so many people seem to have a problem with me calling myself black. A good portion of those people seem to be individuals of African descent from other countries outside of the United States who don't seem to understand the complexity of race in America. The interesting thing is that prior to me publicizing my ancestry results, no one considered me mixed based upon my looks. I have seen some people reply on some of my videos and say I must call myself mixed because I look mixed and my ancestry shows I'm mixed. This is funny to me though, because if they never saw my DNA results, they for sure would have called me black and may have even criticized me if I dared to call myself mixed. My ancestry DNA results show I am 75% African and 25% European, which actually isn't uncommon for Black Americans. I did a previous video, which I will link on the screen, that shows my closest full European ancestor is from the 1800s. I'm not going to get on the black versus mixed discussion in this video again, as I have already made my feelings known about that topic in previous videos and in the comments on those videos. However, I did feel like it was important to mention the black versus mixed dynamic here because it does coincide with my mother's results. A subscriber recently pointed out that having browner skin has no bearing on how much European ancestry one has. I agree with her, and I did let her know that I would discuss that issue in today's video. My mother is much browner than her half-sister, but their DNA results show my mother actually has more European ancestry than her sister. My mother grew up believing her sister must have had more white ancestry. Like I mentioned before, these beliefs are highly instigated by colorism. My father, who took an ancestry DNA test several years ago, is also lighter than my mother. My mother also believed he would have more European ancestry than she would, but their results show that's not the case. I also have more European ancestry than my much lighter cousins. Our results show once again that you can't always determine how much mixed ancestry someone has based upon their appearance. Let's go into my mother's results from 23andme, and then I will come back to this topic. One of the best things I like about 23andme is it is able to determine your maternal haplogroup and your paternal haplogroup. Mitochondrial DNA is passed from a mother to all of her children, daughters and sons. Y-DNA is only passed from father to son. If you are a male, 23andme can determine your maternal haplogroup and your paternal haplogroup. If you are a woman, then it will only detect your maternal DNA haplogroup. However, you can have a brother or uncle that descended from your paternal line to take a test to determine the paternal haplogroup. I know my dad's paternal haplogroup comes from Ireland. I already did a video on that, which I will link on the screen. 23andme shows my mom's maternal haplogroup is L3E3B. L3E traces back to a woman who lived approximately 36,000 years ago in Central or Northeastern Africa. According to 23andme, people with this haplogroup may have originated from Angola. The 3B at the end of my mom's haplogroup traces back to a woman that lived approximately 3,500 years ago in Africa. According to 23andme, only 1 in 1,200 of their customers share the L3E3B haplogroup. However, we should keep in mind, though, that the majority of the individuals taking these DNA tests come from a European and not an African descent. Since the maternal haplogroup is passed down from mothers to their children, I know that I and all of my biological children also share the same haplogroup as my mother. My maternal grandmother also shares the same maternal haplogroup, and so did all of her mothers before her. This was a nice discovery for me because I did have some questions about whether or not my maternal line originated in Africa. This is because my mother's maternal line is discussed in a book written by a son of a former slave owner. In the book, he described my mother's great-great-grandmother, Emma, as having mixed ancestry and looking Native American. However, the fact that our maternal line is from Africa indicates that Emma's mother was most likely black or perhaps mixed with a black mother. Emma was my third great-grandmother who was born in 1840. She was 90 when she died in 1931. Emma was listed as mulatto on the census reports prior to 1900. The son of the former slave owner described her as Indian looking. She obviously wasn't full Native American as she had a maternal haplogroup from Africa. However, my grandmother, my mother, and my maternal aunt all show small percentages of Native American ancestry, which seems to corroborate the description found in the book about Emma and her family. I find this history fascinating, and I'm thankful to have come across it. Emma is a direct maternal ancestor of me and my 3 daughters, but neither I nor my daughters show any Native American ancestry on our DNA reports. The percentages were too small by the time we got to my and my daughter's generations. In fact, Emma was my grandmother's great-grandmother, but my grandmother only showed 1% Native American ancestry, 8% European ancestry, and 91% African ancestry. My guess would be that Emma's mother, Fanny, born in 1817, had a significant amount of African ancestry, and Emma's father was most likely white. I am not sure if Emma's Native American ancestry came from her father or her mother. When Emma died in 1931, her death certificate listed her as Negro instead of mulatto, which from my research seems to be a common thing that happened. Records prior to 1900 would often show black people with mixed ancestry as mulatto, but records after 1900 would often just say black or Negro. I discussed this in another video where I discussed my family tree. Both of Emma's parents' names are listed on her death certificate. Emma was born in Missouri in 1840, but her parents were listed as being born in Virginia. I have not been able to go back earlier than Emma's mother, Fanny, who was born in 1817 and was my 4th maternal great-grandmother. I am very thankful that I have been able to trace my direct maternal line back 6 generations. However, I do plan to find out more about Emma's parents, how they came to Missouri, and what happened to them. So stay tuned for future updates. Here is a graph of what I know about my direct maternal line thus far, going from my 4th great-grandmother down to my youngest daughter, Karis. For Black Americans, it's always exciting to be able to find out info about your ancestors prior to the end of slavery. This is because it's difficult to track enslaved people as they were often listed with just one name or no name at all. I have been able to trace my African American lines back to 1800, but I am looking forward to unveiling even more generations. According to 23andme, my mother is 70.5% African, with 55.9% of that being West African. The majority of her West African ancestry is Nigerian, 34.4%. She is 26.5% European, with most of that showing as British and Irish ancestry. She was surprised to learn she is 2.3% East Asian and Indigenous American. Her Native American ancestry shows as 1.1%. My mother is browner than any family member I have shared thus far, but her ancestry is actually more diverse. Overall, she is 70.5% African, 26.5% European, and 2.3% East Asian, which includes her Native American ancestry. Once again, this proves that you cannot determine someone's ancestry based upon how they look. Our daughter Peyton is also brown like her grandmother, and she shows as 69% African and 31% European according to Ancestry DNA. You also can't use skin color to determine how related individuals are. I put all of our raw data files into MyHeritage, since MyHeritage allows raw data uploads, and we use their testing kit for our youngest daughter since they offer swab test instead of spit test. You can see I'm listed as my mother's daughter at the top of the list. The next 3 matches are my daughters, i.e. my mom's granddaughters. According to MyHeritage, out of all my mom's granddaughters that we have tested thus far, my mom shares the most DNA with her red-headed grandchild. I know she wasn't expecting to see that at all. As a brown-skinned child and teenager, and even a young woman, I remember feeling like people thought I wasn't as important or my skin color made me less than. Sometimes people still say things like, "You are black. Why do you care about any other ancestry?" They want to ridicule you for wanting to know about your background. No one has the right to tell you what you should or should not discover about yourself or your history. My response to them is I am going to discover everything God puts in front of me to know, and for sure I won't be ashamed of that. Nor will I allow anyone else to make me feel ashamed either. Life is a journey, and we all have a right to live freely and abundantly. Knowing more about our backgrounds does not insinuate that coming from mixed ancestry is better than just being 100% African. It's ridiculous to even suggest things like that. Our backgrounds are what they are, and we cannot change that. But we don't have to ignore it or be ashamed either. I will always consider myself a black woman. I am proud of my black heritage, and so are my children. However, that does not mean I shouldn't speak about our full history. If you have a problem with someone accepting their history and wanting to discover more about their ancestry, then you should really look into why that is. What is in your background or history that makes you feel that way? I always say the majority of the time, how someone treats you or responds to you is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. There is a freedom in recognizing this. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I encourage positive comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the post notification bell as well so that you can make sure to get more content. I'm wishing you all a fabulous day and the most wonderful discoveries on your journey. I will see you soon.